Hello everybody and welcome to my Afterthoughts video regarding the movie Interstellar. Boy, oh boy, what a fantastic movie that was. A real, very brain-heavy movie with all the scientific facts and the scientific gobbledygook. And at this point I was wondering, man, how many months or years did they spend researching that stuff to make sure that the facts are as close to reality as possible? Because if you take too much liberty, people will point it out and then you're not the greatest filmmaker anymore. But according to all the stuff I read, the scientific facts were as close as possible to the truth. And that made it, of course, even more interesting. There was a lot of data one had to process while watching the movie, and it had so many twists and turns, and of course also the visuals were amazing. Everything from the different planets they visited to that black hole and the wormhole and this tesseracts in the end, that three-dimensional structure. A lot of visuals, and the soundtrack was amazing, and the acting and everything. And of course the most amazing part was the concept. And again, I'm not going to try to explain the concept in the smallest details, because that would be very difficult. And I think there are probably many YouTube videos out there that do a fantastic job explaining everything to the detail. But I still want to go over the concept real quick, just in my own simple words, to kind of sum it up. And it all started with, as we know, the human population seemed to be doomed because there was a food shortage and dust storms and everything, and light, I think they called it, destroying the food, and the oxygen level, it was going down. So the planet was pretty much doomed. So now they had to find another planet where the population could migrate to. And while they were looking for that, they discovered this wormhole right next to Saturn. And somebody put it there. So they sent through 12 astronauts to check out the galaxies that were waiting behind that wormhole. And apparently they found three promising planets. Three planets that had the potential to be maybe the new home for humanity. And so now they needed Cooper and his team to go through this wormhole to check out those three different planets to find out if one of them is habitable. Now there was plan A and plan B. Plan A was to find a planet that's habitable and then bring the entire remaining human population to this planet to start from scratch again. But there was a big but, because they still needed to solve this equation. And Professor Brand said, while you guys explore, I will solve this equation. I give you my word, he even said. And this equation was all about finding out how you can use gravity to ultimately lift off this huge space station with the remaining population on it, lift it up and travel to that new planet. So that was plan A. And in case that didn't work out, there was still plan B, which was using all those fertilized eggs and then just start a new colony on this new planet. Let the human beings on Earth die and really start from scratch with a new colony. So that was plan B. And that's of course when the trouble started. So they checked out planet 1, the first planet, and it wasn't habitable because there was just water, nothing else, just water with huge deadly waves. So that was a no-go, and they checked it out and came back. And that's when the first mind-blowing scene, in my opinion, happened. There was a lot of other stuff, but so shocking when they came back after examining the first planet. They spent like 3 or 4 hours there, and they came back to the space station. They opened the door, and there was this guy, Romilly, I think was his name, the black guy, and he just looked at them and said, I waited. And it turns out he waited for over 23 years. My mind was just blown. Can you imagine that? this guy was sitting there for 23 years waiting, not knowing if they would ever come back, of course. You know, the dedication and the integrity for him to just wait. Wow. 23 years, that's amazing. So that was pretty shocking revelation right there. And then of course, off they go to the second planet where Mr. Man was giving them data that it looks very promising. So they go there and examine this very, very cold planet. And Mr. Man tells them all the data and that there is a surface and it looks maybe good, maybe even finding life there, whatever, you know. And then it turns out it's the next big lie. It was all just a lie. He faked all the data just because he didn't want to be alone anymore and he wanted somebody to come and save him. Of course, the question would be, save him from what? Because if he goes back to Earth, the Earth is doomed anyway. But I think he just wants to spend the rest of his life amongst human beings on Earth and not wither away in space alone. A very selfish reason, but that's what he did. So he duped them all and tried to, you know, pretty much kidnap the space station and go back to Earth. But as we know, this didn't work out. The whole thing exploded and he was no more. And so now, of course, they wanted to go to the third planet, but they didn't have enough resources anymore to make it. They were also too close to the black hole. And there was the last plan, pretty much all or nothing. And that's where the smart writing comes in. You know, the way they wrote it and the stakes just went up and up and up and up and even higher. I mean, it was just amazing, thrilling to be part of this journey, you know. So they decided that Amelia Brand, the girl, Anne Hathaway, she was the one going to the third planet. Of course, she actually thought she's going to go together with Cooper, but they realized that in order to get away from this black hole, the gravity that pulls them back, in order to get away from the black hole, they need to lose weight. And that came in a form of the Ranger 1 and 2, you know. So they let go of the first Ranger and there was actually TARS, the computer was in there, and they were hoping, hey, I mean, there's a small chance that maybe if TARS enters the black hole, because that's where the crucial information is, right? They need that information, the data from the black hole inside, to then somehow send to the space station or send to Earth so they can solve that equation, so ultimately know how to lift off that huge spaceship with the remaining population on it. So, and that's also where the dumbest line of the movie came in. I liked pretty much everything about the movie, but that was one line that was just like, I would hate as an actor to say that line, because when Cooper figured out, hey, there might be one last chance how he could save human species, you know, how he can save everybody on Earth. All we have to do, send the computer TARS into the black hole and maybe get some information out and maybe save humanity. And then the girl, Amelia Brand, says, oh no, you can't ask TARS to do that. I mean, come on. You can't ask a computer, you can't sacrifice a computer in order to save the humankind. I mean, come on. I mean, they were treating this TARS a little bit too much like it's a human being, but we all know it's a robot. Come on, you can't ask the robot to sacrifice himself to save everybody. No, you can't do that, right? So that was a dumb line, but you know, it happens. It's okay. Every you know, it can happen. The rest was so freaking fantastic that this really doesn't matter. But well, then they got rid of TARS, and then of course Cooper got rid of himself too, because he knew that the weight, you need to leave something back in order to move forward, or something he said. And of course, Amelia didn't know that, so that was another shocking moment to see that he just disengaged, and bam, he was sucked into the black hole as well. She was on the way to the last planet, and of course Cooper entered the black hole, and that was amazing again. I mean, just the visuals alone when he went in there, and the mystery of what's going to happen. You know, you couldn't but just sit at the edge of the seat, and you just wanted to know what's going to happen now. And then he enters this three-dimensional structure that was built in a five-dimensional space, and I think they called it Tesseract or something, those cubey thingies, Tesseract, which shows time in reality, you know, kind of, and that's of course was the key to this whole thing, because the love that Cooper and his daughter had and experienced, that was a very strong connection, and therefore they were connected from the beyond and the real world here. And of course the watch in the end was the key to everything. But when he was looking through that bookshelf, man, and saw his little kid there and saw himself, and man, it's just such a heart-wrenching moment or scenes. And then he tries to contact her and he knocks the books off the shelves, and then she realizes that her dad is the ghost all along. Oh my gosh. And then the sandstorm happens, and you actually see those gravity strings in the room, and the Morse code and everything, and it was just mind-blowing. And I think that's also probably, you know, like when we talk about my favorite scene, there's so many scenes I liked, but maybe my favorite shot was when you see Cooper's astronaut glove touching one of those gravity strings, you know, like, and he starts to Morse, and then you visually see those gravity strings going down to the clock, and it moves the hand of the clock, you know, Morsing. That was an incredible shot. I mean, it was just, I could just stare at that for 10 minutes. It was amazing. And at the same time, it was the key to the whole thing, you know. Oh my gosh. Good stuff, good stuff. So, of course, then ultimately they were able to transmit that information to the real world, where the grown-up Murph now solved the equation and then knew how to build one of those spaceships that can actually lift off from Earth. And then, of course, Cooper ends up on this space station that travels around Saturn, and that's how they picked him up, with 1 minute of oxygen left in his tank. And then he actually is able to see Murph again. Oh, wow. Getting emotional just thinking about that. How incredible that would be. I mean, you know, if you can feel with the character, and you can emotionally connect the character and actually emotionally live that journey of the characters, it's just amazing, you know. And to imagine that moment would happen, you miss your kid, and you know, that kid thought that maybe you left her behind intentionally for many years, and then finally you see her and she's an old woman, she's dying, you know. Yeah, it was very heart-wrenching scene, very nice, very short scene, but they kind of excused it by no parent should see the children die. It was all fine with me. And then, of course, Cooper takes off and goes to the planet Edmonds to save the girl or be with her. And then we also learned that this last planet actually is habitable, because she took off the astronaut's helmet and she was breathing the air. So now we know that this is a habitable planet, and Cooper is going to be there. And they also solved the equation, so technically they could now, with the remaining population, could go to that planet and start over. So it's all good in the end. A very, very happy ending, even though it had a lot of sad moments. But boy, oh boy, what a ride. What a ride. Very emotional. Talking about emotional, that one scene when Murph finally transmits her first video message, you know, and because 23 years passed, because they spent like 3 or 4 hours on planet number 1, which one hour is like 7 years on the human planet here, you know. So they missed 23 years. And then when he watched the messages from the last 23 years, mostly from his son Tom, you know, how how he found the girl and got married, and then his kid died, and of course Cooper's father died, also sad. And then it looked like there was no message from Murph. And it was very sad. And then bam, there she is, talking about how he once said that when he comes back they might be the same age, and I guess she turned, you know, maybe 35 or whatever, how old Cooper was when he left, and it's time to come home. Wow, amazing. So that was definitely also one of my favorite scenes for sure. And what else? Of course, the deathbed confession of the old man telling her own daughter that this whole thing was just a lie. It was just a lie. And wow, what a shocking moment that was too. I mean, you know, Matt Damon's character even said, the old man, he sacrificed his own humanity in order to, you know, in order to save the human species, really. I mean, that's why he lied. But it was such a huge, heavy lie, sending those astronauts out there knowing that the equation doesn't work and you can't solve it. That's just, wow, that was such a huge moment and a huge twist, and it changed the whole dynamics, of course. And you know, this guy pretended for 40 years to work on this equation, and he probably raised and spent millions and billions of dollars to build this research facility, which at the same time was actually a space station. And he invested so much time and effort and energy and passion and all that stuff just in order to pitch Plan B, you know, just so he can actually make Plan B happen. He knew all along that Plan A was BS, but of course, who would risk their own lives to go to space if there would only be Plan B, you know? So this gigantic lie was just so he can implement Plan B. And I mean, I do understand his motivation, you know, he wanted to save the species. Even if everybody on the planet dies, at least there's a future for a new, you know, for a new colony on a new planet. And that's why he did it. But he had to live with this his entire life. And then on his deathbed, tell that truth to his daughter. I mean, wow. And then the daughter didn't even know if her own father knew about it or not. It's just so dramatic. The whole thing was very dramatic, very thrilling, very engaging, very entertaining, very mind-boggling and mind-bending. It was an awesome movie, and I don't know if I have anything else to say, but I think, oh, that video is almost 20 minutes long, so I guess I rattled on long enough and bring it to an end here. Thank you so much for being here and for checking out the Afterthoughts video, and we will see you in the next movie. Okay, bye-bye.